Thanks for listening to Uncle Sam's Soccer Podcast, keeping you up to date with the latest in American soccer. And don't forget to subscribe.
Yes, Uncle Sam's Soccer Podcast, and don't you worry, listeners. You've gotten your wish. Armand Kafai is no longer on the show. He's been sacked, just like a ton of managers, Arsene Wenger in particular, should be. No, I'm just kidding. Armand Kafai's got the week off. Joining us is the one and only Jake Watroba. He's been doing a lot of work behind the scenes, but he's finally making his debut for us. Welcome, Jake. How's it going?
Hey, thanks for having me. Thanks for letting me step in for Armand. Armand will keep the mic warm for you when you come back.
Yeah. Armand really likes to be up on that mic.
Don't worry, Armand. I'm not replacing you. You got big shoes to fill, so you can come
with
back
the kind words.
Be
honest, Jake. Don't fake. Don't be fake. It's okay. Those shoes are quite small. No, welcome to the show, Jake. Tell the listeners a little bit about yourself, what you've done.
I reside in St. Paul, Minnesota.
Yes.
I guess you could say I'm a big Loons fan. Go Minnesota United. Yeah, I've written for a couple different websites. None soccer actually, which I don't know if ironic's the right word, but I have featured in NFLTradeRumors.co. No, I'm happy to be joining up with you guys. It's a really, really cool project we have going on here, and I'm excited with how things are turning out.
Absolutely. Well, on today's episode, we are talking to Rob Stone, and we talked to him about his upbringing with sport, kind of his career, and how he's really been around this sport all his life. I think that's a shock to a lot of people. We talk about Pro Rel, the U.S. Presidency, the direction of soccer culture, and it's just a fascinating interview because you find out a lot of stuff that you typically would not have known from this individual, just seeing him covering so many sports, thinking, oh, he's a sports guy and not a soccer guy, when in fact he's a soccer guy and then a sports guy. Yeah,
you almost get, I don't know about you, but sometimes with some of these soccer hosts on TV, you kind of think that they were just forced into that role.
Yeah.
Somebody has to do it at ESPN, right? So I guess Bob Lee, you're the guy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it turns out, and I don't want to say Bob Lee's not a soccer guy because I think Bob Lee probably is a soccer guy, but Rob Stone is a soccer guy. He's soccer first, and then he's
I know,
college
100%.
College basketball next, or whatever. So it was cool to learn about Rob and his career path, where he's been. And it's nice to know there's people in the media who are as passionate about the game as we are.
Oh, absolutely. And I think one big question in the interview was, has he supported a candidate for the U.S. Soccer Presidency? Well, take a listen, find out. Joining us right now is the jack of all trades, Rob Stone. Rob grew up playing soccer and was an all-state and all-conference midfielder during his time at Colgate University. His television career began at ESPN in 1992 as a production assistant working on programs such as SportsCenter and Outside the Lines. In 1996, began doing work with The Beautiful Game as an analysis for the Tampa Bay Mutiny on Sports Channel Florida, now Fox Sports Florida. Since 96, he has covered many different aspects of the game as a host and analysis, which includes World Cups, FA Cups, Champions League, MLS, the men's and women's national team, Copa America, and much more. You see him all the time on Fox as a lead studio host for all of Fox Sports soccer, college football, and college basketball programming. Welcome to the program, Rob.
All right, Steve, Jake, thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us, Rob. On numerous occasions, we've seen you wear the MLS sport coat with all the badges on it. It's very Don Cherry-esque. What was the inspiration behind that?
Well, it was given to me. Actually, I'll even go a step further back. Somebody gave it to one of my bosses at Fox Soccer, and I guess the question was posed between the two of them. Hey, do you think Rob would wear this on the air? And I believe it was like a decision day, Saturday or Sunday, one of those days where everybody was kind of playing at the same time near the tail end of the regular season. And it looked just stupid enough to be absolutely perfect. So I completely embraced it. I'm more of my size is kind of like a medium. So those sport coats are kind of one size fits all. So what you didn't see were a lot of clothespins, kind of tightening everything up so it didn't look like it was like a picnic table cover on me. And I love it. It makes me laugh. It puts a smile on my face. It puts me in a happy place because it's silly, but B, it's representative of where Major League Soccer has come, where American soccer has come in this country, where you can actually wear a ridiculous sport coat that's got all the logos of all the teams on it. And frankly, I'm hoping MLS can update me with a new one that has the LAFC logo on it for this year.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Well, but let's talk about your growing up age. What brought you to the sport?
My parents, when I was a young kid, growing up in North Carolina, soccer was, barely heard of, and it was kind of one of those up-and-coming sports. And my dad was in the university system and had read about it and educated himself about it and said, this sounds like a great sport. I'd love to have my kids involved in, athletic, for the most part, lacking violence. And so they just kind of signed me up for Rainbow Soccer in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, and I just never really looked back. I really took to the sport. I enjoyed the constant movement. I loved the team camaraderie, and it ended up getting me a job, which is really amazing.
And Rob, after playing and getting your degree in English, you got into TV. What's the experience been like seeing a sport you played from the media side of things?
Well, I don't think I really had aspirations, logistic or feasible aspirations that I would be able to make a living in soccer, to a point I do right now. But back then when I was coming out of college, there were only maybe really a handful of soccer jobs in the country, period, and even fewer that involved television on a full-time basis. So it was an infant. It was a baby. It was a pet project for people at networks like ESPN. And the beauty is that I was there at a stage where it was in the absolute basement, maybe even sub-basement. And I got to see it kind of grow and be part of those early footsteps that were made at a network like ESPN to kind of bring soccer out of the caves and to the masses. And that's tremendously satisfying. And I think in the end, when I look back to how my career went, that's going to be one of the most satisfying things outside of the great friendships I made, is the fact that I got to see this move from a niche sport to an absolute mainstream sport and a juggernaut in the international scope of conversation, particularly in broadcasting, for a majority of the year, not just once every 4 years for a World Cup, but you go onto web pages now and chat rooms and podcasts and television shows, and there's soccer everywhere year round. And there's that brief holiday break, and that's about it. So back then it was maybe a couple events a year that you would look forward to, and now you almost need a vacation from the sport because it's constantly around you.
Right. Did you ever think soccer would come to the point we're at today?
I don't know how much I really thought about it, to be honest with you, when you're young and just constantly grinding and trying to work at your craft. It was more about perfecting yourself and what you do and how to get yourself better and move up the food chain. But there were clearly, big stretches of frustration of, hey, this is great. Why don't these people take this more seriously? Why don't they devote more time and resources to this wonderful game and this product? The first World Cup I worked was 1998, and it was an amazing experience, and so much of it that I took away from that summer in France stays with me, and I utilize it on a daily basis. But I do remember saying, man, this is a bunch of, this is kind of like a Bad News Bears outfit being sent out there with not a lot of money and not a lot of expectations. And it's, hey, you guys, and gals, go get them. Best of luck. We'll be back here in Bristol and hoping you guys exceed expectations, which we did. And you can just see the growth of the World Cup television product through the years in this country. It's really dramatic. But back then in '98, it was you almost felt like you were parachuted into France, and it's survive for a month and somehow find your way across the border and get back to the United States. Good luck, men and women.
What moment did you realize the soccer had made it?
I don't know if it's the moment that I realized soccer made it, but it was the moment where I think a lot of things just started registering for me, and it gave me a chance to kind of sit back in the chair and be amazed as a soccer fan and as a soccer broadcaster. And that was covering the 2002 World Cup. At that time, our studio was based in Charlotte, North Carolina, covering a tournament in Japan and Korea. So needless to say, we were working on a different time schedule than the greater Charlotte metropolitan area was. And really, for that matter, the entire United States, and that was the tournament where videos started coming out of people getting up at these insane hours and hosting these watch parties and having beer for breakfast and gathering at pubs and bars and waving flags and ranting and yelling like lunatics at hours where, the coffee hasn't even been brewed yet. And these videos started coming in from our country, not just the New Yorks and the LAs and the Chicagos, the big cities, but like the Lincoln, Nebraskas and San Antonios and Phoenix and Floridas and things like that. And I remember seeing those come in, and that was my moment where I sat back and said, holy cow, the script has changed. And no one was expecting this, and we need to embrace it. And I think everybody saw that. We on the TV end clearly did. Mm-hmm. The marketers out there, the big companies that want to spend money to be associated with a product like soccer, they all woke up. And I think the joke was over. For years, I dealt with an industry that saw soccer as an easy punchline, an easy joke, take a little jab at the guys from South America rolling around on the field after a blatant dive or something like that. And that was kind of the tournament where it stopped. And it was complete, I wouldn't say complete, but pretty close to complete respect for the sport and the athletes and what is demanded of them and what the sport really is in the history of it. Because for far too long, there were out-of-touch generational people that were in charge of sports coverage, whether it was newspaper or radio or television, and they just didn't get soccer, and they didn't care for soccer, and they didn't want to get it. And they really had a closed-minded approach to it. And that was the year where I think the masses spoke up and said, no more. We're seeing it in Hollywood this year. But if you go back to '02, that was kind of the American soccer voice saying no more. So we're going to stand up. We're going to be seen. We're going to be heard. And we're going to be respected. Mm-hmm.
Rob, let's dive into U.S. soccer. Right now there's MLS expansion. You have the NASL lawsuit and the potential folding of the league. U.S. Soccer Presidency, from the creation of NISA to Christian Pulisic, is he the first ever world-class star we've produced as a country? What do you make of the situation we are in?
Yeah, it's I don't know if it's quite a tipping point, but it's certainly a juncture in American soccer history where I think we're going to look back and say this was a moment where the reset button was hit. Or at least some major tweaks for the benefit of the game as a whole were made. I think for far too long, this sport in this country was running in a closed door type fashion, not a lot of transparency and very few people making decisions. And I understand why, because there just weren't that many people that really cared or invested in it. And you don't have to go back too far to remember the days where Phil Anschutz was essentially propping up MLS. And if MLS folded, who knows what else was going to go? And right. What is the relevancy of U.S. soccer national team without MLS? And it goes on and on and on. And so I think at that point, power amongst a few had to have been put in place for survival's sake. I think we've now survived, and I think we're thriving right now, and it's time to maybe reassess the way things are being run. Mm-hmm.